Be me, Tyler, 28. Night shift operations lead at an old downtown playhouse called The Calder, where fancy chandeliers cover up splinters and near-death moments. Job sounds classy until you realize every curtain, spotlight, rolling platform, trapdoor, and hanging set piece can turn into a medical emergency with applause. Our daily life is rigging lines, counterweights, costume racks, headset chatter, half-eaten wraps, fake blood, real cuts, and actors who think timing bends to feelings. Crew is stagehands, electricians, wardrobe girls, riggers, ushers, carpenters, makeup people, and two ancient lighting dudes who don't trust anyone under 35. Near a pulley old HR lady named Diane handled schedules, complaints, and yearly warnings. Not to smoke behind the wardrobe annex next to oxygen tanks. Rules were basic if a set sticks. You stop it if a line looks off. You check it if someone's about to get crushed. You move first. Nobody here gets paid to be poetic once the show starts. Because velvet seats don't matter if half a ton of painted wood starts drifting overhead. What matters is cues, spacing, clear calls, solid rigging, and never pretending confidence beats physics while an audience stares up. Then one Monday, email drop subject line says, mandatory staff meeting, welcoming new director of artistic safety and inclusion, titles like, that never bring better harnesses or working radios, just speeches, workshops, and policies that somehow make ladders controversial. We all get herded onto the rehearsal stage after lunch, folding chairs set under a half-finished backdrop of fake balconies and moonlight windows. Executive producer stands there with a woman, early 30s, sharp haircut, beige suit, spotless boots, smile like HR paperwork about to ruin your week. Her lanyard pins read, "Believe women, end male control," and a tiny theater mask cracked with a pink lightning bolt. She introduces herself as Morgan Hale. New director of artistic safety and inclusion, hired to modernize the stage through women-centered production. Methods Morgan talks in that soft conference voice says, theater has always masked male control as expertise, urgency, and backstage necessity. She talks about women performers being physically handled by guys in black, female stage managers getting talked over, actresses waiting for male approval. Slides pop up stock photos of male riggers above ballerinas, male directors pointing, while women adjust costumes, captions about ownership of spectacle. Nobody denies? Theater can get macho because every place like this collects at least a few loud dudes over time. Room only gets tense when Morgan says the Calder will become the first fully women-centered stage environment in the city. Final slide says, Project Gentle Q. Women perform, lead, and move without men framing danger, direction, or physical authority. Half the room claps because producers are watching, other half claps because rent doesn't care if logic disappears. I'd happily support less creeps, less yelling, fewer guys acting like actresses can't fix a hem or move a chair. Problem is this place also has counterweights, rolling scenery, ladders, pyros, blind corners, orchestra pits, and actors with zero survival instinct. 2 days later, first packet shows up in every mailbox, pale purple paper, titled Phase 1, Women-Led Performance Zones During Rehearsal and Shows, Stage Right Wing, Costume Crossover, Fly Floor Entrance, and Main Quick Change Corridor are now women-led areas. Male crew can't station there unless specifically requested, or unless danger is already obvious. Translation, the exact spots where sets, jam, costumes snag, actors panic, and moving pieces clip people. Now they're treated like territory. First, Morgan says, women shouldn't have to pass through male bodies controlling access, correction, or backstage rescue during critical moments. Small issue. Our best wing catchers and movers are men, because old theater work was brutal and practical. Bigger issue, critical moments are exactly where people get hurt. Fastest once moving set pieces, darkness, and adrenaline mixed together. I ask what happens if the closest trained catcher is male and a women-led wing starts collapsing before anyone invites help. Morgan smiles, says women need space to handle live pressure instead of watching men take over every moment that suddenly matters. Live pressure here means dropped props, rolling stairs, missed marks, tangled costumes, and scenery heavy enough to turn mistakes into lawsuits. Phase 2 drops the next week, titled No Male Hovering, and public override sounds dumb until moving scenery gets involved. Male crew and supervisors can't stand directly behind women, calling cues, pushing wagons, or doing costume changes unless invited. If a woman deck captain lines up a wagon wrong and I see it drifting toward a support leg, I'm supposed to talk about it. Later, old rule was simple and sacred. If something on wheels is wrong and people are near it, you yell immediately and grab the brake. Morgan calls that public male re-entry through urgency, says women never build authority if men keep taking over the exact second things go wrong. I tell her that exact second is where injury reports come from in this job. She writes something in a tiny notebook, like, I just volunteered to be a case study. Phase 3 goes after cameras because every bad policy eventually decides. Seeing less is somehow more ethical than being prepared. Morgan says, backstage cameras near wings and quick change lanes make performers feel watched while dressing, resetting, doing personal stuff. Security gets told to angle cameras higher. Now they catch movement and atmosphere instead of actual bodies under pressure. Great for cutting down creeps, awful for spotting a snagged hem, tangled line, or someone already on the floor. I email saying those angles literally help us catch wing pileups before scenery rolls through them. Seems like common sense. Morgan replies with 3 paragraphs about surveillance culture, male gaze theory, and how men confuse visibility with care. I print it out and file it under, when this inevitably blows up, at least the paperwork will look organized. Phase 4 introduces reset alcoves, sounds relaxing until you see where they put one. Right next to the fly, rail emergency brake cabinet, women performers and staff can step in there to decompress. Men aren't allowed inside without permission because calm needs protected space. Problem is that brake cabinet stops overhead, scenery from turning people into headlines. I ask if maybe a quiet corner shouldn't share a wall with the thing that prevents a fatal drop. Morgan says women deserve one backstage area not centered around male urgency and mechanical dominance, which is a wild sentence to hear. Next to stacked sandbags, first month of this gentle cue thing is mostly just awkward experienced people, quietly ignore rules whenever danger shows up, wearing black paint. Older women hate it the most. They earned authority. Surviving live disasters, not posing for inclusion. Slide's costume supervisor named Rachel tells me over burnt coffee that theater never needed softer men, just quicker hands at the exact right second. Guys hate it. Because now they stand frozen outside taped lines watching wardrobe girls drag heavy racks past moving platforms while apologizing to physics. Actors are just confused, asking why some dude escorts them to the stage entrance, then stops like he hit an invisible wall. Morgan calls that confusion. Evidence of cultural transition, which is technically true because bad ideas glow under stage lights. Then we land the biggest show of the year, a televised all-women gala called Midnight Voices, celebrity actresses, dancers, donors, press, arts funding people, local officials, and some national streaming service all suddenly care about our building. If it works, we get grants, roof repairs, maybe finally replace the nightmare left fly motor. Morgan immediately decides this show will prove women can run every visible and invisible part of production without male control. She drops another packet on us because clearly 2 weren't enough damage for 1 season. This one's called Women First Stage Presence Protocols. Sounds less like safety and more like a polite hostage note. All visible wing handling, quick changes, rolling set, handoffs, and on-stage fixes must be done by women wherever physically possible. Male crew gets reassigned to workshop floor, basement storage, loading dock, and anything far away from visible action. My best deck captain, Chris, gets pulled off stage. Right guy has saved multiple actors, a chandelier, and an entire staircase before. Doesn't matter. Our strongest fly operator, Marcus, gets shoved into scene dock duty because his presence apparently signals male authority over overhead danger. I ask if maybe moving heavy objects above performers is exactly where visible expertise should exist, just for survival reasons. Morgan says that question proves I still link competence with men, says women are meant to hold the frame. Now I tell her the frame here is literal steel and wood moving over human heads that also goes into the notebook. The gala itself is a nightmare to run fast. Scene changes, costumes designed by someone who clearly hates zippers. We've got stair wagons, a rolling moon platform, silk drops, a massive mirrored arch, and a flying chandelier. For the finale, the mirrored arch is the worst part of all of it. Tall, heavy, rolling on hidden casters. And just barely narrow enough through stage, right to feel like it wants to kill somebody. Normally Chris runs at 2, pushers on the sides, and me watching the track from downstage. Morgan decides the arch move has to be women-led, because big visible structures apparently carry symbolic weight. Or whatever I seriously consider laying down in the orchestra pit and letting fate handle it. She assigns Jenna, one of our assistant stage managers, plus 2 wardrobe girls and a props runner, all capable, all hard-working, none with Chris's instinct for moving heavy stuff. Blind in blackout conditions, Chris gets reassigned to pipe and drape setup in the loading bay because his competence might ruin the backstage narrative. I ask if he can at least stand 5 feet back and watch transitions, since the arch already scraped a set leg during rehearsal. Morgan says male shadowing would visually undermine the entire event, if anyone noticed, which would matter more, if the wings weren't pitch black. But Etiology apparently sees in the dark just fine. Dress rehearsal already throws warning signs, arch snags. A cable once Jenna fixes it, then one pusher drifts half a step, and the mirror frame taps a masking flat. Nothing breaks, but every alarm bell in my body now has backup singers. I say we either put Chris back on it or slow the transition before opening. Morgan says slowing, women-led movement to accommodate male anxiety sends the wrong message. The cast, meanwhile, mostly prefers not getting crushed in front of donors. Opening night arrives, lead actress Vanessa Cole shows up in satin, perfume, flowers, cameras flashing. Lobby full of people saying, "This is historic," into champagne. Glass's house is packed, stream is live, donor section glowing like a tax write-off convention. Backstage feels like a pressure cooker in sequins. Morgan floats around on headset in a black suit, praising women-led, wings saying, "Tonight the theater belongs visibly and operationally to women." First number runs clean because every disaster likes to warm up with false confidence. Second number, also clean. Third number has the arch. And I already hate how calm everyone sounds. Over comms lights drop to deep blue. Cue hits, arch starts rolling from stage, right during blackout, while dancers clear. I'm posted about 10 feet back, because apparently my presence warps the command field. Still can't believe that's a real sentence. First few feet. Go fine, then one caster hits a seam and catches tape. Arch shifts slightly. Jenna corrects one wardrobe pusher. Overcorrects. Now the whole frame starts drifting downstage, off track, maybe 6 inches, on a rolling structure next to live. Performers isn't a small problem. It's paperwork waiting to happen. I step forward, key the radio, hold the arch, reset the wheel. I'm coming in. Morgan cuts in, instantly. Do not override a women-led movement in front of everyone. Let them recover. That sentence costs exactly the time. Disaster needed. Arch corner clips. A hidden shoe caught in the hem of an actress waiting off mark. She stumbles sideways straight into its path. Jenna yells. One pusher freezes completely. I move. Morgan grabs my sleeve, says stop making every hard moment yours. I pull free because I'm not letting a giant mirror fold someone in half. For optics, Chris, absolute legend, is already sprinting in from the side hall because useful people ignore bad policies. We hit the arch together. I grab the frame and shove it back. Chris locks the wheel brake and kills the sideways motion. Still too late to avoid contact. Actress gets hit hard in the hip, and thigh goes down. With that sound that kills every conversation. Backstage, music keeps going for a second. Booth thinks it's choreography. Then someone screams, stop into comms, audience gasps, stream cuts, wide, half the dancers, freeze, other half, keep going on autopilot because that's how they're trained. I drag the arch back. Chris clears, space medics rush in, actress is conscious, crying, trying to say she can stand, which means she absolutely shouldn't, Morgan's first reaction. Somehow is yelling about maintaining visual calm and not flooding the stage with men. Irony almost becomes physical at that point. Show gets halted, donors look horrified. Streaming crew asking what just happened. Foundation rep looks like. She just watched funding evaporate once the actress is moved, and the audience gets a technical delay announcement. We get pulled into an emergency meeting in the green room. Producer, legal, foundation rep, executive director, Morgan, me, Chris, and an outside safety consultant. Everyone looks like incoming weather. They pull up the wing camera footage first, and it already looks bad, because Morgan had the angle tilted too high still enough to see the caster catch. The drift, me calling it, her blocking me, my sleeve grabbed, Chris coming in, right before impact. Nobody in that room can spin it into something noble, foundation rep. Immediately asks why the heaviest, most dangerous transition was handled by a team without the strongest movers. Morgan starts talking about women needing visible control over major stage movement, not being hidden behind male technical presence, the safety consultant, older woman, former opera tech director, cuts her off. Cold says, ownership without competence is just theater with casualties. I mentally carved that into stone. Legal asks if concerns about the arch were raised before opening. I forward everything, rehearsal reports, emails, request to let Chris shadow. Notes about the caster seam, risk all of it answered by Morgan, with polished language about male urgency narratives and resisting reflexive intervention. Foundation, rep asks if the transition was intentionally staffed for optics during a donor-facing women's gala room, goes quiet because saying yes out loud somehow sounds worse than reading it. Executive director finally says he trusted Morgan's expertise to align with the mission. Consultant fires back. That the mission didn't hit the actress, the arch did, and the arch was understaffed on purpose. Chris quietly adds, he could have corrected the drift about 3 seconds earlier. If he'd been allowed in position, 3 seconds. Every disaster in this job seems to cost exactly 3 seconds, and one person protecting the wrong thing. Streaming producer asks who physically delayed intervention. Nobody wants to answer, but the footage already did. Her hand on my sleeve. That moment ends her more cleanly than any argument could. Actress ends up with heavy bruising and a possible hairline pelvic fracture. Could have been a lot worse. Still, bad enough gala is basically dead on arrival. After that, by the next morning, every sponsor, board member, and arts blogger knows what happened. Consultant comes back with a city inspector and workers' comp investigator. Because of course she does. They go through all the gentle Q policies somehow. It all sounds even worse out loud. Women-led zones, no hovering, delayed intervention rules. Relaxation alcoves next to emergency controls. Consultant says the whole system treated proven safety habits like they were moral problems instead of backup systems. Workers' comp guy asks why a qualified responder was physically stopped during an active moving hazard. Nobody has a real answer. Just Morgan trying to turn principles into excuses, while everyone else mentally updates resumes, Monday morning, email, hits all staff, subject line, immediate production, safety, reset, every gentle cue rule. Suspended camera angles, restored movement assignments based on actual skill instead of optics. Closest qualified person responds immediately. No matter gender or visibility. Middle paragraph says Morgan Hale is no longer employed at the Calder. No farewell, no meeting, just gone by lunch. Only thing left is one of her pins sitting by the sink in the staff bathroom. Chris gets stage right back. Marcus goes back to fly rail. I get to use my voice again, like an actual alarm. Instead of asking permission, injured actress recovers, slowly comes back months later for a small reading, walking careful, but joking about it, which means she's okay enough. Foundation still cuts. Next season, funding honestly fair. Almost crushing your lead should cost more than awkward emails. A few months later, someone sends me an article Morgan wrote. Leadership platform, lots of white space and dramatic tone. Headline basically says, she was fired for making theater safer for women against a hostile male backstage culture. Talks about backlash, fragile men, institutions, punishing change. No mention of the arch. No mention of Chris. Definitely no mention of her grabbing my sleeve while someone was about to go down. I closed the tab stand in the wing the next weekend, watch a clean, boring scene, change hit perfectly on cue. Audience doesn't react at all, which is exactly how it's supposed to be. Invisible, uneventful, safe. They just get the show.